and on with this experiment. I didn't start the video until I was most of the way through it, but basically backed all these screws out using kind of a small screwdriver. I think that's a PH1. Getting the top off, you have to undo it. There's a little tabby thing that you got to pop off to get that out. Now, for the purpose I'm going to be using this for, because it's compatible with Dremel bits when you change out the tip, we're going to be, I'm probably not going to be using the normal zip saw style attachments for this thing. I might though, so I'm going to dig under the workbench for that little metal attachment point. My problem is that some of the pieces got lost on this thing in the interim, but I do have another one, so they'll both go together in a kit. But as far as replacing this part, it's about a $5 part here, and it's actually a sub-assembly which you could use technically with other stuff, which is really interesting. I think I'm going to order some more of these because it's basically minus the attachment housing for the Ryobi batteries. It's the same contact points. So if we, let's say, come up with another device that uses the same, we want to be able to run on that same voltage, you can kind of look through the e-replacement parts catalog and find, see, this will actually snap on and stay. That will actually snap onto there and stay. So you could actually create other devices that use the same Ryobi switch assembly. Therefore, we'll use the same Ryobi battery, which gets really, really interesting. Opens up a lot of possibilities if I can work with these assemblies and then use Ryobi batteries on other stuff. See that the motor assembly and the switch assembly removed from the body of the tool. It's not glued in, it's basically just secured in by the two halves of the tool. And the reasons these aren't coming all the way apart is this little spring steel ring, which is what held part of the head on. So the rest of this is actually not much for tools. We just pull the tabs out, put the new tabs in. The main body of the switch just simply pops off of that relatively industrial standard switch, and then we put that together. So as we can see, what's at the core of a lot of these tools is a fairly small, not overly powerful motor, but if somebody wants to play around with, let's say, remote control cars and airplanes and stuff like that use these motors, it's not all that difficult of a concept to get into. To avoid running into any of the problems you might have with reversing the polarity on a motor, although it may not matter that much, what I like to do is detach, when I have a wiring harness sub-assembly on something, I want to detach one at a time and then reattach one at a time. So I pulled off the positive and I put the positive on with a new piece, and then that way I know the negative is going to go here, because otherwise these two aren't marked, and it's pretty reversible, so there's no other way you would know, and it may not matter, but that's how I'm reattaching the new one. You may run into on this that I just ran into, and I'd heard about this from one of the guys at the parts place, was on some of these the switch is reversed and it only fits in there one way, and you may have to break a little tab off of the inside of there in order to get it to go all the way in, which I did, and then that forces the wires to go into this slot, and that's how everything got to fitting the way it should. You can see the wires don't protrude into that. We've got the little battery holder assembly. I'm just holding this together by hand for the testing, okay? So none of the mounting screws have been put in yet, and we're going to see if we've got action. Yeah, that's the way it works. Which is, for whatever reason, that still ended up backwards. Okay, we're going to flip that little switch around the other way and get it to work. Okay, flipping the switch around the other way. That's the way it's supposed to work. The idea is that if you drop the tool while it's running, it's possible it can turn it off. The other thing is you don't want it to accidentally turn on, like, let's say, while it's sitting in a tool bag and then just start drilling its way through shit in a tool bag. So I'm going to make sure the wires aren't blocking this thing from pinching together, and then get all the screws back in. Maybe you could use a power tool on these. It's not much slower to use a regular, hand screwdriver on this. One of the advantages of kind of cannibalizing parts between a couple of these, when you use a circle cutter attachment, they want you to take this whole assembly apart to attach it. The thing is, if you cannibalize parts off one of these things, you can take this other little attachment on here, and then all you need to do to attach a circle cutter is this little nut here, take it all the way out, and then you get to replace the other one. And so this one ends up being dedicated to use what I call Dremel tool attachments, rotary tool attachments. Plenty of power there to do it. The only thing is, if you're reaching in to try to do small parts, you realize you've got kind of an ungainly thing. So you'd only use it with a lightweight battery. It's a little bit tricky to hang on to. There is probably a way to adapt the what I call the snaky attachment to these things that normally come with rotary tools. It's just that the threads up here are different, so that's a little tricky, and that'll be a project for another day. But if you get a hold of these Ryobi tools or any power tool, parts go bad from time to time. I don't know what happened with that. It looks a little corroded on the inside. And eReplacementParts.com. Hopefully more people will do more how-to videos on how to repair and replace these things, and that way they end up having more service life and not going to the junk pile.